Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome again, listeners, to another episode on Talk Architecture podcast with your host, Naziati Muhammad Yaqub. Again, I would like to touch today on the topic of skills and knowledge in architecture. Somehow, when I reflect upon my being a studio master, teaching architecture design, it takes me back to 2013 when there's a particular batch of second year students that myself, Kevin Matlow, and other lecturers were the lecturers or the studio masters for this set of students. And in particular, what have happened lately was drawn or inspired from the success of one of my students, Gogularaajan, who is a rising director in Malaysia's independent film scene, as stated by Varnam Malaysia. And they interviewed Gogularaajan, and because Gogularaajan was selected for the prestigious Directors Factory program alongside with that happened recently with the Cannes Film Festival. He, with a Filipino co-director, Eve Baswell, premiered the short film Wale Ballet at this prestigious and internationally renowned session that happens during the Cannes Film Festival. So Gogo had been the editor of Haran and Shoban's Metro Malay, and recently he had worked as an assistant director on Sanjay Perumal's upcoming Nir Mel Nerupo, which had already premiered in the International Film Festival in Rotterdam in 2024. Gogu, on his own, is an individual that keep on drawing, keep on sketching, and I like his sketches on human beings, doing different activities. That's what he has been doing. He went into architecture, like many in his batch. Somehow this batch, there is less pressure. I think there is less pressure on them to study. And they had the advantage of going to all of the batch participants. They had the opportunity to do a joint program with Unpar and ETB in Bandung, Indonesia. They either did the library project or the polyclinic, Puskesmas. That is one of the projects that they did. The other one was the boatman or a boat maker workshop and village in Pulau Duyung. That was a bit of that one is something happened. Everybody got sick, or almost everybody got sick when they went to Pulau Duyung at that time. So that project was kind of had a hindrance in terms of people being sick, but they managed to do a technical study of the boathouse where they have the repair of the boats. They did the usual thing as well, the project on healthcare. That was two semesters worth of our interaction with them as tutors. What it is that there's a lot of case studies, there's a lot of going out, there's a lot of observation needing to be done. In fact, when they went to Pulau Duyung, they interviewed the villagers or the people around the site. We understood about context better and context specificity, And that also coupled with that, I think when they did the boathouse technical drawing, it was after the trip to Bandung. At least a week we were there, and we went to various places, visiting other buildings. There were a lot of details of the aula or the hall in Bandung, in which some of them inspired from and did in the technical details. So I'm not surprised that from this batch, not only Gogularaajan, there are many others who have an independent sort of spirit and confidence to do what they want to do. And now I'm observing them like 10 years later, and they're in their early 30s. The confidence that Gogularaajan has to be in an international festival, doing the stuff that he does, I don't say that it's about, it's to do with our teaching or our tutelage, but it is him. He has that spirit of keen observer, and that helps a lot in my opinion, in his filmmaking skills and passion. Others in that group, quite successful. Farah Mohan, who did, Farah Mohan is the batch before. Lis Lequin, who's doing her art. Then you have the others as well. I mean, even if they're in the traditional architecture practice, they're doing very well. There seems to be a never give up spirit because they believe in themselves, believe in their skills, and they make things happen for themselves. They're not having any defeatist mentality or, you won't believe me, or you think that, it's just me gushing over this batch. But I, as an educator, need to observe the patterns or what has transpired from their lives so far. It gives me an idea about how architecture education could be creating a situation where they could learn from and they could be confident to negotiate life. And it's not liberal arts, but there is this dose of arts and humanities in this one. Yes, they are quite competent in the technical skills as well, because there's a lot of observation of details. And after we've done the first batch, we replicated the similar program with the second batch. But for the first batch, we could not control the Bandung projects because I and Kevin Maklo went to Penang and there were 12 people who did the projects with us. But in the second batch, which is Gogularaajan's batch, we had control of the Bandung projects. I'm here talking about this because having control of the learning from an educator's point of view, because you want them to learn the best way possible for them to flourish. And you know what formula is going to work and the interaction that you have with individuals. I do see some of them after when they do the design thesis in the 5th year. And some of them were also with me and Kevin. At that time in 2013 and the previous batch, 2012, we knew that we wanted to conduct a design studio where Kevin leads and Kevin takes care of, in a way, we all took care of the students, in general, all the students, but he would give some inspiration for those who were the brighter students or the ones that wanted to be more adventurous or be much more questioning. And the first batch, I was kind of, how shall we say, spreading myself a bit thin because I was looking out for all the 52 students. There were too many there. But in the second batch, we managed to balance out, and we concentrated on the learning experience more than anything else. We learned from the previous batch. The previous batch was a bit more students than we had, normally we would have. And the second batch, I think, is about 40 something. The interactions between lecturer and students is that we try to find something in their work which will help them to move on. That's what I would do. If they're very artistic, I would encourage it. In the second year, the way that they are developing or they are going through the process of finding themselves out was more positive in this regard. I'm trying to recall exact program. I know the programs I mentioned to you before. The exact thing of certain individuals. I told Lis the other day she was having an exhibition of the dark artists and her use of color. She was like that when she was in the second year. She was a keen student of architecture. Whether she figure out she wanted to be an architect at the end of the day is up to her, really. But we can see now that she's an artist that is being respected and being looked at now, establishing herself and her art, and even curating and even doing an exhibition with other dark artists. And she's sort of a leader. Confidence is now transferred to being a leader amongst them. Though they do their own thing. And also a business person. So this business sense that the students have is, to me, linked to the entrepreneurial aspect, and going back to all the conversations we had with regard to design problem or hypothesis, design thesis, and the architect entrepreneur. But I was focusing on part 2 when I did that. Then after that, I came to the conclusion with certain individuals that I met. They were not students directly linked to me, very entrepreneurial and smart and confident. These students that I met did not bother to go into part 2 or Master of Architecture course. So we have from this batch like Gogularaajan and Lis Lequin. That's not her real name. Her real name is Akila Naklis. But for example, from this batch, the confidence is great. I like to mention others like Hui Xin, and Joo Yin. And there's Corinthian batch. forgot the name of one of them, but I remember Adam and is it Azahari? But this batch also were entrepreneurial. They didn't bother with part 2. Except for Adam and Joo Yin and Hui Xin, obviously. They're more traditional architecture sort of people, but they were also entrepreneurial. I could have all these aspects of, like a formula of how you could create learning experiences, which they will be more confident of themselves and tap into that part of themselves that gives belief and recognition of themselves to go and explore things or to do things that is outside of what normally people want to do. I think it bodes well for the human being, and by the time they reach the age of early 30s, they would be much more experimental, much more confident, like whom I mentioned to you. I mean, some of them went to do part 2 overseas, like Hui Xin. Joo Yin did it in the same university. It depends on whether the circumstances afford them to continue. But the second year, what happens in the second year? What happens in the first degree? Why the second year is because the expectations of the second year is less rigid or fixed or being, shall we say, meddled with. And as a studio master at that time, we could get them to fulfill the expectations of the school, yet make them able to reflect, able to be gaining confidence with the skills of observational skills and critical thinking and analytical skills. Reading is something that hopefully they would do. Having people around them. We don't give them texts or give them readings, because if you want to know, Malaysian in general don't really like to read, but the idea of conversation, dialogue with other people, observation, make you want to read more. Reading about what's happening, the experiences. So those things were facilitated, and those things were part of the design critique. And because I really would like to know what were the things that we did right. And only 10 years later, we can see it through different batches and different individuals. And the root word or the key word would be the confidence that they have now and the entrepreneurial spirit that they have now and what they're doing right now. So as an educator, those are my observations. So I'd like to stop it here now and may continue this later. Thank you very much.